Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I am Lorraine Marcus, and my pronouns are she, her. We are so glad you have chosen to be here, virtually and in person. Our minister, Reverend Michelle Buhite, is on sabbatical leave through August. Services during this time include guest speakers from near and far and assistance from sabbatical team thoughtfully assembled by Reverend Michelle, and even more assistance from our tech crew, our greeters, weavers, ushers, musicians, and coffee makers who seek to create a safe and inviting space for all who enter this sanctuary of UU Amherst. For those in the chapel, I invite you to put your phones on reverence mode, silencing them so that you and all may be fully present and free from distraction. We also ask that you become aware of the closest exits in case of fire or any emergency, the double doors at the back on each side, and a single door behind the tapestry on the left. In addition, for little ones who need to move around during the service, there is an area in the back on the right that can provide space and activities. After service today, our garden and grounds team will be on hand to explain what we have been doing outside. Tour guides and participants will gather on the patio and divide into groups depending on the level of interest. We will look at our food production beds, our memorial garden, and perhaps other sections, including the Ecology Center. Look for Angela, Diane Bowfinger, and Pam Kent. Oh, she's already out there, as your guides. As we gather, we acknowledge that our church is built on land that was once nourished and cherished by the First Nations of this region, the Haudenosaunee, and the people known as the Neutrals before them. May we continue to tend this cherished land and courageously cultivate community with all living things. It has been said that Unitarian Universalism is the religion that puts its faith in you, trusting each individual to engage in the spiritual journey and to reach our own conclusions about spiritual matters. We do that in beloved community as we support one another in faith and friendship. In that spirit, this congregation has created a covenant, a sacred promise of how we will strive to be with one another. Please join me in speaking our covenant. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness ourselves, our children, and our world. We begin each gathering by lighting the chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Our flaming chalice represents the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of our commitment to foster more compassion and justice in a hurting world. Please join me in speaking the words. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs, we light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. Each of us carries with us into this worship time cares and concerns, joys and sorrows. Together, we create the container where we can put down our burdens, knowing they are held gently by this gathered community. For those joining us virtually, I invite you to give voice to that which is on your heart, or perhaps type it into the chat in the live stream. For those here in the chapel, I invite you to come forward and place a stone or shell on the table labyrinth in recognition of that which is on your heart. Candle for our larger community. This candle is a reminder that in hard times, our ancestors in faith acted with courage to bring hope and safety, to bring life itself to threatened people. We light it today as a reminder of who we are called to be in a world still dangerous and despairing. With courage and faith, we bring ourselves to the work before us. Please join us in communal singing with this traditional Buddhist meditation.
May
Beissner is our guest speaker this morning. Reverend Bruce Beisner serves as minister of all peoples, a Unitarian Universalist congregation in Louisville. He is a graduate of Meadville Lombard Theological School and led the Bay Area UU Church in suburban Houston, Texas for 9 years before coming to Kentucky in the summer of 2021. Bruce and his husband Jim now reside just up the street from Churchill Downs and are the proud parents of 2 beautiful Basset hounds named Rose and Lily.
Good morning, Unitarian Universalist of Amherst. My name is Bruce, and it is truly a pleasure to be with you today. I bring you greetings from your UU neighbors down in Louisville, Kentucky. Over the next hour, we will be using a lot of words. We will be singing and speaking and praying. But we are not here for the words. We are here to touch and experience what the words represent, to feel a deeper connection, to find comfort and courage, to experience our faith, and to let the Spirit of love enfold us. May this time we share together transform us, one and all, in ways that words cannot express. I don't know about you, but I love stories. I love to hear stories, and well, I like to tell stories too. I think that a good story is an invitation to use our imagination and to learn and to grow in ways which may surprise or even amaze us. This morning, I want to share with you an ancient story from India. It has been told in many forms over the centuries. Here's my version. Once, a long, long time ago, there lived a woman who had a small house on the side of a hill. This woman's home did not have pipes or plumbing or running water like most of our homes do today. So every morning she had to walk down the hill to get some water from a stream down in the valley so that she could wash her clothes and clean her dishes. This woman had a long pole with 2 pots on either end. She would carry the pots down to the stream on either end of the pole to gather the water that she needed. Over time, one of the 2 pots developed a crack in its side, so it leaked. By the time the woman had walked all the way back up the hill to her home, the cracked pot was only half full, while the other pot was full all the way to the brim. Each trip she made back and forth to the stream, she only returned with 1.5 pots of water. For many years, this woman went back and forth to the river. The perfect pot was quite proud of its accomplishments. Oh, but that poor little cracked pot grew ashamed of its imperfections. It was miserable that it could only accomplish half of the job it was supposed to do. It felt like a failure, and it became very sad. One day the cracked pot spoke to the woman. It said, "Oh, I want to apologize to you." "Why?" said the woman. "Well, I'm very ashamed. I have been able for all these years to only deliver half of my load. Because of the crack in my side, all the water leaks out along the pathway and never makes it back up to your house. Because of my flaws, you do all this work and you only get part of the efforts," the pot said. Well, the woman felt sorry for the poor little cracked pot. And in her compassion, she said, "Today, as we walk back up the path, I want you to notice something. Look carefully along your side of the path." That day, as they went up the hill, the old cracked pot looked around and saw along its side of the path a whole lot of beautiful wild flowers. Big blossoms of pink and blue and yellow were everywhere. This made the cracked pot feel a little more happy. But when they got back up to the house, it was still sad, because once again it had leaked out half of its load. So again, the little cracked pot apologized for its failure. The woman said to the pot, "Did you not notice all the flowers? Did you not notice that they only grew along your side of the path, but not on the other pot's side? That is because I have always known that you had that little crack, that you had that flaw, and I took advantage of it. I planted flower seeds along your side of the path, and every day as we have walked up, you have watered them. For years now, I have been able to pick beautiful flowers to decorate my table. Without you being just the way you are, I would not have that beauty to grace my house." "We all have our own unique flaws," the woman told the pot. "We are all cracked pots. In the great web of life, nothing goes to waste. So please don't be afraid of your flaws. Acknowledge them. And you too can be a cause for beauty. Know that in your weakness you will find your strength." And this made the little cracked pot very happy. And that's our story today. A couple of weeks ago, I was on my way to work at church, and as I merged onto the expressway, I pulled behind a blue Toyota minivan. Now, this was one of those vans. You know the ones. Perhaps you own one. A vehicle on which the bumper stickers seem to have come to life, multiplying freely across the bumper and onto the back doors and even up onto the windows, kind of like barnacles on an old pirate ship. Now, I love bumper stickers. It occurs to me that the messages that we choose to stick onto our cars or our backpacks or our skateboards or our briefcases, well, they're bold public statements of who we are and what we hold to be true. Amid the plethora of propaganda that this van driver was offering up for me and other motorists to read, two messages jumped out. The first was, "Mean people suck." I thought, okay, they do, and it's true. But of course, I know and you know that telling unpleasant people that they suck isn't the best way to get them to be more friendly. It's not really being the change that we want to see in the world. The second bumper sticker on that van that I remember, I found less amusing and actually a little disturbing. It read, "It's all about me," with the M-E in big red capital letters. I found myself unable not to respond, saying aloud inside my car, "No, no, it's not all about you." Now, immediately, a little voice inside my head said, "Remember, it's not all about you either, Bruce." A couple of exits down the highway, a little voice that maybe was somewhere down here chimed into our conversation and said, "Maybe, just maybe, it's all about us." Us, U.S., not the country, but humanity. Us. Let's put that in big red capital letters this morning. Now that sounds easy to do. It sounds like one of our great UU principles, honoring the interdependent web of all existence. But when it really comes down to it, I think often it's easier to see that magical web living outside in our gardens and in big issues like our climate crisis than it is to actually see it in other people. Many times living like it's all about us and not me isn't that easy at all. It is a basic common denominator of being human that we see the world through our own set of eyes. We know life through our own experiences. We judge how things are and how they're going to be on how they have been for us personally. When I was young, my family often went to Myrtle Beach on summer vacations. And while we were there, we would often go to a particular restaurant called Captain George's. One night at dinner at Captain George's, my mom was looking over the menu and decided to try the oysters. Now, my mother had never eaten oysters before, but she was the kind of person who embraced new adventures all the time. Well, when her plate arrived, my mom took a few bites and announced that something was foul. My father smelled her entree and concluded with the certainty of a chemical engineer that these oysters were indeed rotten. The infamous bad oysters of Myrtle Beach have become a touchstone in my family's shared memory. For years after that night, my mother would not try an oyster, not a bite. Her experience taught her not to. It took over a decade for her to make another oyster attempt, and I'm glad to tell you that this time she had more success. We all walk through life with ourselves as the only true, unquestionable source of reference. From the moment that we leave the womb, we know only our own fears and desires firsthand. We are left to guess at what other people are really thinking and feeling, what seeing life through their eyes might be like. We learn to see the me and the we as separate, existing on opposite ends of the spectrum. In fact, most respected models of human development are based on the ability to make this differentiation. Piaget and Freud would call us emotionally immature if we didn't build those walls of separation. Becoming your own person, an individual, is the goal. Unitarian Universalism is in many ways a religion of individualism. We celebrate the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and our earliest theologians affirmed personal experience as the ultimate source of truth over doctrines and dogmas. As inclusive religious communities, we open our church doors to all, saying, "Come, here you can be your true self. Here you are free to believe and take your own spiritual path." We worship at the altar of individual religious freedom. But at the same time, our churches are covenanted communities where we promise to journey together in faith. From our earliest Universalist roots, we have proclaimed the unity of God and the unity of creation. Francis David, the Bishop of Transylvania, so famously stated that God is indivisible. God is one. The early American Universalist Hosea Ballou preached that all humanity shares a common source and a common destiny. He saw a loving God who created us all and would never banish any of his children to the fires of hell. Now, in reading Ballou, I have to wonder about our commonality between birth and death. To me, that's what really matters. And I have come to believe that we are not only linked in our history and our future, but also we share a common now. That the belief that we must give up some of ourselves to be part of that we is actually an illusion. The choice to participate in the interdependent web of life is not a choice at all. It is a given. A friend of mine named Jerry is a Roman Catholic priest, and Jerry is fond of saying, "We can never know everything about God, but the one thing that we can say with certainty is, God is." Now, whenever Jerry and I talk theology, I find myself agreeing with him, but kind of in my own Unitarian Universalist way. A couple of weeks ago, I told Jerry that I believed in the God of interdependence. So with all the mystery in the world, the one thing that I can say for certain is interdependence is. One summer, a number of years ago, Jerry and I served together as chaplains at a hospital in Cincinnati. Each day we would visit with patients. He was in the emergency room and I was on the oncology floor. During much of those 10 weeks, I spent a lot of time with one particular man and his wife. Today I'll call them Frank and Ellen. Frank was undergoing treatment after treatment for leukemia. I sat with them in his hospital room, often for hours. We would talk about their faith, their hopes, and their dreams. We also talked about their fears and their uncertainties. Often we just sat together in silence. Now, some days when I would stop by the room, Frank was all smiles and could joke about his illness. Sometimes he would wonder aloud if God had it in for him because of all the swearing that he did during his days in the Navy. Other days when I would come by, he could barely raise his head from the pillow to say hello, the chemotherapy drugs ravaging his body. During my last week of work at the hospital, Frank received the news that the cancer had spread to his brain and that he would be going into hospice care. Ellen and Frank and I prayed together and cried together as they packed their bags and prepared for the final chapter of Frank's life. They thanked me for being there with them through all of those weeks. The next day I was talking with my friend Jerry, the priest, and reflecting about my time with Frank and with Ellen. And Jerry asked me, where was God in your experience? Was God directing your ministry with them? Now I know that for Jerry and for many other religious people, God is a pretty concrete thing, and I respect their beliefs. But for me, God is, well, more of a fluid concept. After thinking about it for a while, I replied to Jerry by saying that I believe that God was at work in the interaction between Frank and Ellen and me. I saw the holy in the space between us, in the connection that we made, in the love amidst the suffering. I believe that God is present in my ministry, in the relationships. The love and the empathy that dwells in my heart is the product of all the people in my past who have nurtured it in me. It comes out of opening my eyes and my ears and my mind to the connections that are all around me. It comes from worshiping at the altar of interdependence. In the U2 song, Staring at the Sun, Bono sings, summer stretching on the grass, summer dresses pass. In the shade of a willow tree, creeps are crawling over me and over you, stuck together with God's glue. It's gonna get stickier, too. In Unitarian Universalism, we talk a lot about the web of life. We picture it as a great spider web of creation. We quote people like Chief Seattle, who said, "We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it." This affirmation informs our passion for caring for our Mother Earth. We recycle, we reuse, we put up solar panels, we advocate for responsible consumption. We are tree huggers, and we are proud of it. This morning I ask you, what might happen if we expanded our understanding of this interdependence? If we took it to the next level? If we named and we claimed the web of life as our God? Locating the holy not up there in heaven, not in a book or in a church. Locating the holy instead in you and in me, and then in that mysterious space between us. If we realized we don't have the choice to live in isolation, and we encountered ourselves and others as stuck together with God's glue. As I said earlier, believing that the holy is present in relationships is often easier said than done. We have to ask ourselves, do we really want to be stuck together, to be glued to radical terrorists or despotic dictators? Do we want to be stuck to politicians who pass on conspiracy theories and continue to deny the realities of climate change? Do we really want to be linked to neighbors that yell at us because our dog pooped in their yard? We are reminded daily that being in relationship is complicated. As Bono says in the U2 song, it is a sticky business. Ignorance, intolerance, and greed are part of the mix, like it or not. But if we are stuck to it, stuck with it, bonded in relationship, we can't ignore it. We must be agents of change, preaching and teaching love and acceptance, respect for the living life of compassion, and most importantly, living a life of forgiveness. For me, knowing that on some deeper level, my next door neighbor may be terribly unpleasant, but knowing that she is also a part of me may not make me like her more, but it may make me pause and wonder, why is she so crabby? What pain lurks in her heart? How could I help? How can I, in our momentary interaction, honor the glue that binds us together? And when I am the one having a bad day, when I'm one of those mean people who suck, because, well, sometimes I am, maybe the fact that I'm not in this alone, but I'm bound to you and bound to the universe, maybe that truth might make it just a little easier. I believe that seeing the holy as the glue that binds life together can help us make sense of things, can help us connect the bad oysters and the bumper stickers, the hospital rooms and the irresponsible politicians. We can live in relationship and not separation. We can and we must keep seeking to unite that me and that we. We must live in the us. God is the glue that binds. After all, it is all about us. So now, let's get sticky together. Amen, and so may it be. It has truly been an honor and a pleasure to be with you this morning. I leave you now with these words of blessing by Eric Williams. The world is too beautiful to be praised by only one voice. May we each have the courage to sing our part. The world is too broken to be healed by only one set of hands. May we each have the generosity to use our gifts. May all the complicated and sacred connections that abound bring us peace within ourselves and with each other. Amen, and so may it be.
Thank you for joining our gathering today. I hope you have been inspired and uplifted by sharing this time together. You can support the work and mission of this congregation with your financial contributions. For those in our chapel today, you will find baskets at the back to receive your gift. For those participating virtually, I invite you to take a moment to visit our website, uuamherst.org, and click on the giving link, or text your gift to 833-987-1968. Please join me as we extinguish our chalice with these familiar words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Travel light and travel easy, till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. May the road rise up to greet you as you leave your past behind. I will think about you gently, and I'll hold you in my mind. Travel light and travel easy, till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend.
We do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel this way with us, so be swift to love and make haste to be kind. Go in peace. Ta-da!